let's talk about Maleficent.
Oh boy.
Tipped at this when I bought this last year. Still haven't watched it since I bought it. I watched it in the theaters, I think opening weekend, and the sequel's coming out this Thursday/Friday. And I don't know what you think about this movie, but I wanted to get some things out right now before the new one comes out again, trying to retcon complaints and concerns I had. So before I say what I got to say, what did you think of Maleficent?
So, okay, here's my problem with Maleficent.
And you have problems.
I do have some problems with it. Not with the movie itself, because I think everybody in it did a good job. I like Angelina Jolie as Maleficent. So there's that. What I don't like is I don't like the way that Hollywood tends to take villains and try to explain why they're villains, and often use the woman is only a villain because of some evil man that wronged her and therefore she is a villain, right? Like, I don't like that. Why can't people just be bad just because they're bad? Like, one of my favorite things about The Dark Knight is that, like, that whole thing about the Joker where he says, where Michael Caine playing
Gordon.
No, Michael Caine plays the butler.
Oh, Alfred.
He just says, some people just want to watch the world burn, right? That's like a great line. Sometimes people are just bad. You know what I mean? And I don't understand why they had to make Maleficent, like, her reasoning for being bad was that she somehow fell in love with a different species of prince, and the different species took her horns that we never even really knew she had, and all of a sudden she's bad.
Her wings
that we didn't even know she ever had, and turned her into this thing. Oh, and by the way, she really wasn't that bad the whole time. You know what I mean? Like, come on. Why can't she just be a villain? She was a great villain in Sleeping Beauty.
Agreed. Okay. This is the difference here is what you just described that you didn't like is what I loved and what I was most excited about this film. Let me just first of all say, Maleficent is the number one on my top 10. Back before we started doing the show, I had a top 10 Disney villain list. She was number one. The reason I loved her so much is she was pissed off and did all the horrible, evil things she did in the movie Sleeping Beauty just because she wasn't invited to the party, which shows that her sitting in her broken, ruins of a castle, she had the power that she could have cast all these spells and done these curses and all this stuff anytime she wanted to, but she didn't need to because what does she care? She's above just messing with people for no reason, just being evil, right? But then she wasn't invited to the party. She was like, well, F this, and that's when she went or initiate all the chaos that happens in the movie. I like that. I like stories that can give a little depth. I don't think you'll like the Joker movie because it gives depth to the character. And I agree. I don't want to see too much background on the Joker played by Heath Ledger because I like the whole concept of him being such a mystery. Joker in the new movie is a totally different thing. But Maleficent was such a beautiful, engaging villain that had no background, nothing to give you motives or history on who she was, why she was, where she got her power, any of that stuff. And then they teased the movie. And the first teaser I saw, if you remember, it had, the whole premise of the trailer was, the story, now hear her side of it, or whatever it was. Saying that this movie was going to be the same movie, only her side of it, her version. Now, it showed the party, and all you saw were the two horns from her, her horns was bobbing up behind the people in the party. You didn't see her, you didn't see anything else, and then you just heard her cackle. And as soon as she laughed, I was like, they nailed it. And I'm not a huge Angelina Jolie. She's a great performer or actress, but I don't go out of my way to watch her movies. I don't really care. But when I heard her laugh and then I saw the first visuals, I was like, they nailed it. And she's my favorite villainess in Disney. I was so excited just from that. Then I see the next trailer, and it shows her like come behind the tree and talking to Aurora and everything. Aurora, right? Yeah, Aurora. And it was like really exciting, and they kept pushing that this is her side of the story. You get to see why she was the way she was. And I was like, I would love to see some motive behind this amazing villainess. So then I watched the movie, Josh. Now, this movie is about Angelina or Maleficent, she's this fairy woodland creature, and you're right, she had wings, and we didn't know she had wings, but now it told the story of how she lost her wings. And that sequence in the beginning of the movie where she meets the boy, she goes, they spend their little date together, fall asleep or whatever happened that night. They fell asleep, and then he cuts off her wings in the sleep, right? You remember that sequence where she wakes up? I've only seen it once. It was 2 years ago or whatever, 3 years ago, 3 years now. And she wakes up and she realizes they're gone, and she was drugged, essentially raped. Mm-hmm. She was victimized, and she lost her power or her authority, her identity, her innocence was removed. That's where she learned that she can't trust men. Okay? That sequence when she woke up without her wings was fantastic. And I was like, this is so good. Now I see why she doesn't like men. I can see why. I mean, I'm talking about mankind, but specifically the gender of males. Then she grows up. She has these little mini battles or whatever with the people. And King Stefan. Yeah, King Stefan, he's fighting against her. But he just doesn't, whatever. They had their little stupid controversy that no one cared about. But you saw where she was coming from. And she was going to get her ultimate revenge by punishing their daughter. And then she didn't get invited to the party. She shows up, puts the curse on Aurora, and then Aurora is taken off by the fairies. That didn't fool Maleficent. She goes out there and follows them and watches them in the cottage and watches Aurora grow up. And then the amazing part of Angelina Jolie's performance is that you can watch her absolutely falling in love with Aurora just from her expressions and watching her in the shadows and the trees and everything. And I'll never forget how exciting and how cool that was to watch, and just how expressive she was. It was beautiful watching Maleficent all through those sequences.
I'm sorry, so we're getting to the point where you don't like it?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Because I'm saying this is an amazing setup, and I'm like, this is such a good film. I love this. I love where they're going. I love her motive. I love her character. I love this being a different side of the story. But the problem, Josh, is they changed the freaking story. You can't have a trailer saying, here's her side of the story, and then tell a new story. The outcome was totally different. We'll talk about that in a second. But she's watching Aurora, and then Aurora comes up to her one day, who she now feels that Maleficent is kind of her mother, because the three fairies are bumbling idiots. And she goes up to her and she tells her that she met a boy in the forest. And I was like, oh, this is so good. She is about to explain and freak out. And she's going to say no, because she also met a boy in the forest, and that boy betrayed her and took away her innocence. And she was going to absolutely forbid her to see the boy again, causing her to choose the boy over Maleficent, or the mother. You know, separating to be with your spouse and leaving your family, whatever. Anyway, she was going to do that, and that was going to trigger all this animosity and hatred and protectiveness coming from Maleficent to try and stop this horror from happening to her daughter, because her motive was, now, it already happened to me. I am not going to let this happen to this little girl who I loved. And she already went through, or she tried to break this curse and everything. It wasn't going to work. It was going to happen. She was going to end up asleep and everything. But nothing was going to stop her from saving her daughter. And that would have been beautiful. But is that what they did? No. They end up her figuring out this curse and stuff. She goes and finds Philip. And the curse happens, Aurora's asleep in the tower and all this stupid crap. And then the king, the entire time, has been obsessing over this remember this corkscrew spiky thing that he was building? And they had that whole scene where he's like, wake the workers, they got to get going on this. It was his obsession to protect his family from, and out of spite, from Maleficent. Maleficent just walks right through the freaking corkscrew thing, just levitating Prince Philip like nothing. It was pointless and stupid. She walks right through it, doesn't affect anything, gets into the chamber, lays her down, or wakes him up, and he tries to kiss her, doesn't do anything, and then the motherly kiss is what wakes up Aurora. Isn't that precious? It's not the same story, and it's stupid. You can't take the story. I don't care about, I mean, I'm happy sharing motherly love and women power and all that stuff, but that's not the story, Josh. They took the concept and they broke it, and they had her go in there. And then the dumbest thing happens. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
They are ambushed in the hall, and she turns the crow into a freaking dragon. She didn't turn into a dragon. The crow turns into a dragon. And these guards come in already prepared with giant nets and huge shields ready to defend against a dragon that they had no idea was even possible. And they come in and they fight and quell the dragon with very little difficulty. That dragon, which could have consumed them all pretty instantly and been done with it. But that's not all. Then, in the dumbest fashion, Maleficent carries on this fight, gets up into the chamber, and finds a cupboard. And what's in the cupboard? Her wings are still alive, trying to break out of their freaking captivity to rejoin Maleficent to restore her power. Then they have this big stupid fight up on the balcony, and Stefan ends up falling to his death, if I remember Stefan, and she, flies victoriously. That's a stupid plot with a stupid story and a bad message. The message should have been, even though she lost her power or the ability to fly, she lost her innocence, you don't just get your innocence back. That's not a message. Someone who's a rape victim or someone who's had a huge loss or tragedy or difficulties or things come upon them that they can't undo and had huge ramifications, you can't just get that back because you find a magic cupboard and have it perfectly restored. But you can learn and adapt and grow from it. And she, in the movie, was incredibly powerful. She just couldn't fly. So it showed where in the cartoon, it showed how amazing and incredible she was. And she was so above this petty, stupid revenge and all this crap. It was all about she was offended later. But she if this was her side of the story, she got cut off and everything, whatever. I don't even care about you. I'm so much better than that. I've learned to move on. Then she was incredibly powerful without her wings. But in this version, she gets her innocence back. She flies away in the most ridiculous fashion. And what happens at the very end of the film? Stefan died.
Tell us.
Stefan died. And then they have their fun little wedding. Not even a wedding. They have their little ceremony where Aurora's there and Maleficent's there. And everyone's like happy for the curtain call. And then the crowd parts and then steps up Philip. Why is he there? Because this movie tells us that men are good for nothing except for self-destruction and breeding. Because he doesn't even have a line. He just walks up, and then Maleficent flies away and has this big soaring little adventure through the woods for his big cinematic ending, leaving Aurora and her boy slave in the woods.
Well, to be fair, it is Maleficent, so I mean, I guess it would follow Maleficent. Look, it sounds
to died at the end is what I'm saying too.
Sounds to me like what you're saying is you don't like the fact that they took the story in a direction that you didn't like, and so therefore it's not a good movie.
It's a different story, and it's a dumb. Tell me what the message is there. How is that a good message?
I don't know. I'm tired.
I'm just saying that they undid the story. They told it different. If Maleficent doesn't die at the end of it, that's not the same story. And you take out Philip, King or Prince Philip, where he was supposed to come back, conquer, and fight and slay her. And if that had happened, you could have had sympathy for Maleficent because you're like, oh my gosh, all she was trying to do was protect Aurora. And it was a huge misunderstanding. And that was such a tragedy. And now we fell in love with this character. And now she's gone. That's how the movie should end, because that's how the cartoon ended. You can't put in the trailer, oh, you've seen the movie, now see her side of it. If you're going to completely tell a different story with a different outcome and everything else is irrelevant, everything that you already knew. And the other thing, by the way, in a movie where you have a king who's obsessed about something as a huge weapon that's going to kill your hero, that's how they should die. He shouldn't have died by falling off a balcony. He should have died tangled up in that freaking corkscrew thing. Just like what's his name? The guy in Rogue One being blasted by the Death Star ray. They shot him directly in the tower and killed him. Whatever his name, Krennic. Anyway, I'm just saying it was so good. 2/3, and then they completely dropped the ball, rechanged the story, not because it had to be my story. It had to be its own story. And then just had a very dissatisfying and pointless message. And I'm sorry, anyone I've talked to has not been able to defend that ending. Other than, oh, look, she flew away and we can have Angelina Jolie just beautifully in the sky soaring. Sorry, it's not an engaging story.
Hashtag worth it.
So now it felt like in the sequel, it feels like they're retconning some of that. I don't saw the first two or once because I don't watch second or third trailers anymore. But I'm gonna watch it this weekend, and I'm gonna come back and report, tell you what I think. But I'm just saying, the first one, they dropped the ball and they ruined what was already being set up as a beautiful movie. Why? Because Lord of the Rings was huge and Narnia was huge. You have to have big action battles and everything, and that's what they had to focus on. But it's terrible, terrible, terrible. And also women power. Every movie has to just regurgitate women power, where you just don't need Prince Philip to do anything.
Well, you don't have to mansplain us, Tim.
Just saying. So that's my chastisement of Maleficent.
So I don't really have that big of a problem with Maleficent, but I don't have a passion for it like you do, though I do find it strange that a 40-year-old man would have a passion for a children's movie. But
she's amazing. Maleficent is such a cool character.
Why don't you marry her?
I would love to. It's Angelina Jolie, man. But she was fantastic. It has nothing to do with performance or CGI or anything like that. Everything was really good, especially Angelina Jolie. But sorry, they twisted up the story and kind of tripped on themselves, and they just wanted to put out some propaganda, just like Aladdin. Felt just like Aladdin. Anyway, that's my that's the chastisement of Maleficent. So everyone I've talked to about this has disagreed with me, but no one has given me a good reason why it went the way it did, other than like, you just want it to be the same.
There's the challenge for our listeners. If you actually get or watchers, I suppose. If you get all the way to the end of this video and Tim's rant, please comment below and tell him how wrong he is, because he clearly is, because it's not my opinion. So,
all right.